You ever notice how quiet they get when you're right? How they smirk at first, roll their eyes, whisper behind closed doors, until everything you predicted starts happening word for word. Yeah, they call you crazy, until your madness becomes prophecy. They laughed. Oh, how they laughed. You think you're a prophet? You think you see the future? No, I just see what you're too afraid to admit. You warned them. You told them how it would all go down. You saw the betrayal, the chaos, the downfall, long before it came knocking. And when it finally arrived, suddenly you're no longer the lunatic. You're the oracle they ignored, the menace they underestimated, the ghost they can't get rid of. They're freaking out now, aren't they? Not because you hurt them, not because you attacked them, but because you were right. And that, my friend, is the most terrifying thing in the world to someone who wanted to see you fail, to someone who hoped you'd fold, crumble, vanish. Instead, you stood tall, smiled, and said, "Tick-tock, it's coming." And it did. Their mask is slipping, their empire is cracking, their lies are unraveling. And you're just watching, not saying a word. Because your silence is louder than their screaming. They can't stand the fact that you're calm, that you're unbothered, that you walk like a storm and speak like a riddle. They're losing sleep trying to figure out how you knew, how you saw through their games, how you predicted their moves before they even made them. It wasn't magic, it wasn't luck, it was observation, experience, and pain turned into precision. See, when you've been stabbed enough times, you start to recognize the shine of a blade before it even leaves the sheath. You've been burned, betrayed, mocked, replaced, set up to fail. But you didn't die. You evolved. You didn't run. You watched. And while they danced in their arrogance, you were studying the floor beneath their feet, just waiting for it to crack. Now they panic every time your eyes narrow, every time you speak a sentence with weight, because they know what follows. They know when you say, "Watch what happens next," the universe listens. You're not the villain. You're the reckoning. The truth they tried to bury has roots in your voice, and every time you say, "I told you so," a little part of their ego dies. Oh, they'll say you're delusional. They'll say you got lucky. But deep down, they're terrified of you. Terrified because you see through them. Terrified because your silence is strategy. Terrified because you're never wrong. You didn't become powerful by accident. You became powerful because you bled in silence and healed in the shadows. Because you turned every betrayal into blueprint. Because you turned every loss into leverage. You don't need to prove yourself anymore. Your track record speaks for itself. Your enemies are now your students, learning from the chaos they once mocked you for predicting. Every time your predictions come true, they lose a little more control. They start watching your every move, analyzing your words like sacred scripture, because they know, wherever you're pointing, something is about to fall. Let them squirm, let them whisper, let them doubt, because they are already living inside a prophecy they refuse to believe. You're the storm on the horizon they pretended wasn't real. You're the voice in the dark that said, "You will regret this." And now, regret is the only language they speak. They tried to erase you, but now they can't even scroll in peace without stumbling upon your truth. Your warnings are everywhere, in their feeds, in their minds, in their nightmares. They thought they were playing chess. But you weren't playing. You were documenting, waiting, remembering every move, every sleight, every mask. And when it all collapsed, they looked around for help, but only found the echo of your voice saying, "This is what happens when you dance with devils and call it destiny." You're not cruel. You're just accurate. You're not cold. You're calculating. You're not bitter. You're surgical. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to clap back. You are the clapback. You are the mirror. and they can't look away because all they see now is guilt. Your enemies underestimated the power of someone who observes, someone who watches, takes notes, and remembers the exact moment the knife went in. And now they're freaking out, because your predictions keep coming true. And your silence, it sounds a lot like karma. So keep quiet, keep calm, keep warning them without saying a word. Because every time the storm hits exactly where you said it would, you don't even need to smile. The world does it for you. You're not the villain in their story. You're the proof that fate listens to the ones who were silenced. And when the dust settles, they'll finally understand. You didn't just predict the storm. You are the damn storm. You didn't just predict the storm. You are the damn storm. And storms don't explain themselves. They just arrive, loud, violent, unapologetic. They rip through the landscape like truth, tearing through a lie. You don't knock on the door anymore. You kick it down. Because polite people get ignored. But chaos? Chaos gets remembered. They thought you were overreacting. They thought you were broken, paranoid, delusional. Now they're choking on the smoke from a fire you warned them about. You told them, if you light that match, don't cry when the blaze consumes everything you love. They laughed. But they're not laughing now. Now they're scrambling. Now they're rewinding your words like gospel. Now they wish they had listened. But you weren't meant to be heard. You were meant to be experienced. And experience, my friend, that's the kind of teacher that burns the lesson into their soul. They call it revenge. You call it prediction. They call it coincidence. You call it pattern recognition. But no matter what name they slap on it, one thing's for sure. Every time they doubt you, reality lines up to prove you right again. They thought you were emotional. They didn't realize you were calculating. They thought you were obsessed. They didn't realize you were precise. You see things they ignore, things they pretend aren't real. But you stare into the storm, into the chaos, into the lies, and you smile, because you know how it ends. They think the worst thing you can do to someone is scream. The worst thing you can do is know exactly what they are, know exactly what they'll do, know exactly when it'll all fall apart, and say nothing, just watch. You ever notice how people fear the calm before the storm more than the storm itself? That's you now. That eerie silence, that tension in the air, that feeling in their gut that something's coming. That's your presence. You walk in and everything changes, not because you're loud, but because your existence is proof that truth never dies. It just waits. And when it returns, it doesn't knock. It wrecks. They're not afraid of what you'll do next. They're afraid that you already have. They're afraid that every word you spoke was a seed, and now the harvest has arrived. And guess what? They're the ones trapped in the field. You became the karma they never thought would catch up. You became the answer to their sins. You became the mirror they can't shatter. Because breaking you now would only reflect more of themselves. Let them run. Let them block, unfollow, hide behind fake smiles and fragile walls. It doesn't matter, because the truth you delivered isn't going anywhere. It's in the air now. It's in their decisions. It's in their nightmares. You aren't just some ex-friend, forgotten lover, or burned acquaintance. You are the final chapter in a book they swore would never end, and they can't rewrite it because you already signed it in blood. So let them pretend they're not affected. Let them lie through their teeth. Because every time the next domino falls, they'll hear your voice whispering, "Didn't I tell you?" You didn't destroy them. Their own arrogance did. Their own ego, their own deceit, their own ignorance. You just sat back, hands behind your back, and let time do what time does best. Reveal everything. That's what they hate. Not that you were right, but that you saw it so clearly, so effortlessly, like you were reading a script they thought they wrote in secret. You're not the villain. You're the verdict. The cosmic sentence read aloud in the courtroom of consequence. You don't need applause. You don't need validation. You already know your worth. And the only ones who don't are busy praying you stay silent. But silence is no longer mercy. Silence is war disguised as grace. Because your enemies are learning the hard way, you don't need to raise your fist to break them. You just need to be right. And the truth is, you've been right all along. So walk tall, walk alone. Let them watch from the shadows they once pushed you into. Let them whisper, let them panic, let them drown in their disbelief. Because your enemies aren't just freaking out, they're unraveling. Because every word you spoke is now a prophecy fulfilled. And you're just getting started.